Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. We are the Mile High Property Brothers. Today, getting into it, we're talking about the 10 most important things you must know when it comes to buying a new build here in Denver.
All right, let's get right to it. All right, number one is to, first of all, you want to dial in the location in the city, right? There's a ton of new build communities that are around the whole Denver metro area, but also more importantly, you want to dive into the reputation of the builder as well.
Correct. I will say, for the most part, you've got a handful of builders that are here in Colorado. You do have a couple that are boutique, that are in specific spots, but for the most part, all of your Denver metro areas have a lot of the similar, just national builders,
Yes,
right? But
yeah.
one thing when we talk about areas first is depending on your commute to work, depending on the livability, depending on recreation and occupation, everything else that you have, to consider, areas tend to come first, right? If you fall in love with a home, but it's in the area you don't want to live in, like it's really hard, right? Because no matter what you do, you cannot change that area, right? So areas tend to be super important. If there is a boutique builder or a certain builder that you would just love to have, or you have to have, and you're open to living in certain areas, like, it's possible. But in our experience, in the past couple hundred buyers, these past couple years through YouTube, areas tend to be so important. And the only time you'll ever reach some type of like buyer's remorse is because no matter what, you just can't live there. Like for me, Arvada, there's nothing wrong with Arvada. I don't like it. There's nothing, you couldn't pay me to live in Arvada. And again, there's nothing specific. It's just for whatever reason, coming off the highway and the entrance to it and just
Older
whatever,
areas
it's just not for me. So no matter how cool a house is out there, I'm not even sure if I want to go home.
That's
right.
Funny.
Like I'm sure you guys can relate to things like that, but this is why the area is so important, because this is the one thing you're not changing when it comes to where you live.
It's true. And when it comes to builder reputation, one note that I want to throw out here just before we move on is that, like Will said, these are all like very big, well-known nationwide builders that we have here. And you're not going to be a giant nationwide builder while just being absolutely terrible and screwing people over all the time.
No, but things do slip through cracks. Things do happen.
Yep. And more importantly, and this is why it is so important when we jump on these initial Zoom calls, because what we found, guys, is it really comes down to the construction manager in a specific community, right? You may have a great builder, but if you have a construction manager in a specific neighborhood that is not the best, a whole bunch of things are not going to go right. So it is really important just kind of like get some good localized knowledge.
There's just a ton of like 1099 folks that are general contractors. Some work for the actual builders, correct? But then you've got the actual construction workers, these subcontractors that come in to build these homes. They're all going to be governed by your project manager, correct? So depending on how good that crew is that's working for that company at the time that you're buying a home, it's going to be super important. The communication is going to be super important. And the reputation, as far as like if something happens, that should be, fixed and or mitigated on this home. What's the builder's reputation as far as getting things fixed for people? Some have a great reputation. Some have some horror stories when it comes to how long people wait and or it just never being fixed and it clearly being a problem in the first place. So doing some homework on areas in addition to reputations and specific reputations to how well that they actually get things mitigated are going to be first and foremost the number one thing, right? Before you fall in love with any floor plan or any backsplash or whatnot, we want to make sure that the people we're working with are going to be great and reliable as possible for us to go through a new build process with.
Now, that leads us perfectly into our second point, and that is to get familiar with the builder's warranty programs.
Correct.
Now, I'll go over kind of the general warranties that you can kind of expect from builder to builder out here, but again, they could vary, but in general, what you're gonna see is after you move into a new build home, you're gonna have about a 1 year, what we call it porch to porch warranty, even though they don't like us calling it that, but it's a defect and workmanship warranty, to where as the home goes through its first year of just wet soil, dry soil, heat, cold, the house is gonna settle a little bit, your caulking around the windows is gonna crack, you're gonna get some grout cracks in the bathroom, all normal stuff that the builder will come in and fix.
100%. In addition to that, guys, just being specific, we helped just over 140 people last year alone from YouTube to purchase homes. And out of those 140, over 50 of them were new builds, believe it or not. We do a lot of new builds, so we're very familiar with new build contracts. We're very familiar with new build warranties and all of that stuff. And that's also where I tell you, yes, I'm speaking this and I'm talking about the people we help because we are licensed brokers here in the state of Colorado. And yes, just as much as we love making these videos, we would love more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number that's popping up below, we are the guys who answer the phone calls, text messages, and those emails. So if we can help you with a new build like we're talking about today, but getting more specific, yes, when it comes to those warranties and contracts, there's not many folks on the real estate side that deal with as many as we do. So when it comes to your specific questions and how they word things, it's super important. And just to give you, a little bit more of a nugget here, the new build contract is not your Colorado real estate contract. Builders have their own independent contracts that they've made for themselves. And yes, it's going to be structured how they see fit, but there's still some things that we can mitigate. There's still some things that we want to make sure there's clarity on. No, they're not out to get you. No, they're not out to just build you some crappy home and get out of it. It's not about that, but it's different and it reads different and it's just structured different than your traditional pre-existing home that you're gonna buy from some seller. It's different when it comes to builders, so when it comes to these warranties and these contracts, you definitely want some experienced agents that are helping you.
And one more pro tip when we're talking warranties, especially this first year warranty, is that you're going to want to get a third-party inspection, which we've got phenomenal inspectors, where they will come in about month 11 and do a full home inspection so that you can put a final work order together for the warranty company before it expires after that first year.
And yes, and listen, not only are builders familiar with this, but they want you to do it, right? This is month 11, this is before your 1 year. You wanna make sure everything is nip-tucked before you go into your second year on that home. You do have some 10-year foundation warranties and other stuff that are gonna be a lot longer than just your 1 year, but that 1 year bumper to bumper per se, we just wanna make sure that not only is it just things that you can see throughout living in the home, let's actually have a licensed inspector come through and make sure everything is exactly how it should be as far as what we cannot see. And if there are some things, let's make sure we get it mitigated before we get into month 12.
That's right, because that brings us into point number 3. Speaking of inspections, we do recommend a third-party inspector before you close on the home and then at that 11-month mark, because the inspection you're going to get before the home closes when it's vacant is going to be very different than the inspection you'll get after the home's been there for a year and you've been living in it.
Correct, and that inspection prior to, that's more so just to make sure that everything is up to code and done appropriately and that everything is done. We've had some clients before that they were not our clients during this process, but after the process, they came to us, we ended up helping them sell their home. Their entire sewer was not finished, guys.
As in it ran into dirt.
Went out the front yard and just ran into dirt. Like there was no pipe connecting it to city water, which is under like the main road. It just never got covered. And was that intentional? Of course, no. Of course it's not intentional. But when you've got so many people coming in and coming out as far as building these homes, things slip through the cracks. But if you have inspectors that come through their entire job, like if you guys think about it, when they're building 100 homes at a time or 25 homes at a time, and yes, they have their own inspectors. Yes, they have people coming out to make sure things are up to code for the city. But when you've got a guy that's going out to a certain area and he's got to check 25 homes that day or 35 homes that day, and all of them have different things that he's checking, things just slip through the crack unintentionally, right? But when you have an inspector that's licensed, that is specifically for you, only looking at your house, he's going to go through everything. He's not just going to go through and make sure that one thing was done in that house and then forget he was supposed to check something else. He's checking everything, including the sewer. So when it runs into dirt and there's no pipe, it gets caught before they actually lay the sod or lay the driveway. We've actually had this happen to 2 clients prior to working with us. And one of them had to rip the entire driveway
they did.
to add the pipe. It was a nightmare because the sewer just backed up into their basement. Everything got fixed, obviously warranty or whatnot, but think about just the headache it was to have that done, right? So these inspections that are done prior to closing are more so just making sure everything is nip-tuck, up to code, and actually done. That one at a month 11 is to make sure that everything that's happened since settling and being around and having some normal wear and tear go on, everything is still functioning appropriately before you get into your second year of your livability.
Now, jumping into our next point, let's talk about maybe some of the unexpected or not so obvious expenses that come along with buying a new build. Ooh. Now, as we've spoken a lot.
Garage door openers?
Like garage door openers.
That's my pet peeve.
So
it makes me mad.
Let's touch on a couple of those things. So the big one that a lot of people are like, oh shoot, I didn't even think about that, is going to be landscaping. All right. So typically builders in Colorado, they will include front yard landscaping. It's going to be basic. It's a small patch of grass, some gravel, maybe a couple little plants, and maybe a tree. Now the backyard is totally up to you. Now that means irrigation, because we need sprinklers out here. That means whatever sort of landscaping, bless you. Whatever sort of landscaping you want to do in the back. And then on top of that, most likely putting in a fence that most of the times you're just going to share with the neighbor.
Correct.
But if you back up to open space or you don't have a neighbor that wants to play, like you could be having a fence expense as well.
Now, when Eli says it's up to you, he's talking about the design within HOA restrictions, and they give you some freedom as far as what you're allowed to have and not have. But he doesn't mean it's up to you as in whether you want to do it or not. So the option to not do it is not there.
Correct.
It's mandated, you have to do it, and they give you a deadline, 3 to 6 months or whatever it's supposed to be before it has to be done. So, and they typically have local experts that are doing the other 15 houses in that area, and they can get it done very well for you. But definitely something that you want to think about. The whole garage door joke. Yes, they're not terribly expensive, but yes, believe it or not, there are some builders that do not include, the big motor that plugs into the roof and opens the garage doors. They're not included with some builds. And
silly.
It's just their way of cutting some costs when they're building thousands of homes. If those things are $900 a piece and you need 2 of them per house, well, 1,800 times 100, I'm sure it adds up. But the point is, for me, I feel like that's one that you just shouldn't cut. Either way, they'll install it for you, they'll purchase it for you. It's just something that's going to go on your purchase order. So little things like that can be a little frustrating, but just knowing certain unknown costs depending on the builder up front, and then just being able to weigh the pros and cons. But hey, maybe that builder is worth you buying your garage door openers because the floor plans and quality and type of home and location are just everything you need, and something like that's not such a big deal. But either way, it's not so much making that decision right now. It's just you being aware of some of the things before we get into it.
That's right. Now, the other big expense you might not be thinking of are window coverings. Window coverings for an entire house. Homes have a lot of windows, and until you guys have, it can be. You can go real high end, you can go low end, but even doing low end, it still ends up being pretty expensive because once you start counting windows, there's like 20 or 30 windows in a normal house.
Depending on the market, depending on inventory, depending on where a builder is at, sometimes there is incentives, and you can negotiate these things in your contract. So whether it's like rate buy downs that they have right now or rate guarantees that they have right now, which are phenomenal, you guys are getting great interest rates on new builds, which is obviously a great topic of discussion for right now if you guys are interested in it. But there are other things like some of these costs where, hey, if they want to move a couple more units, if it's been a little bit slow for them or whatever it may be, sometimes those incentives where they'll either get it done for you or they'll give you some concession for it to get done after closing. It's all open for debate and open for discussion during that contract process.
Now, moving right along, number 5, should you or can you use an agent when buying a new build?
1,000%. Not only do they expect you to use an agent, but they actually prefer that you use an agent. A lot of folks think that builders want to save money by you not having an agent and you just working with the folks that represent at the front desks of new builds. That's not the case, right? Like they want you represented by a licensed realtor because they're going to help you navigate the legal contract of everything. They're going to help you navigate the design center. They're going to help you navigate decisions, and that cuts down time.
They should be.
Well, they should be.
An agent should be, yes.
Well, and here's the other part, right? Like developers, like they don't represent you guys. Like they represent themselves in the build, right? And then the folks that work the front desk and that are at the design center, or like the representatives that help you tour a home when you guys are looking at like a model, they represent the builder. So there's only so many things that they can kind of help you with when it comes to difficult questions or things that you might want to negotiate or navigate, or challenges through inspections and getting those things taken care of. They prefer you to have somebody represent you because it keeps everything streamlined. They've already allocated cost when it comes to that stuff. It's more so just making sure that everything goes kosher along the way, and it costs you nothing right now.
It costs you nothing. And, to Will's point, just to follow up a little bit more on that, we get compliments from the sales representatives all the time because it is just an extra layer of communication. And sometimes clients, you're busy, you're trying to move, you got full-time jobs. Maybe you guys aren't as responsive as they'd like you to be. We're getting those calls. Hey, Eli, man, can you reach out to your client? We need this thing signed. And then we can kind of bridge that gap.
We've also got access to everything that you're already going to be needing to sign, and we've already got a game plan for you.
100%,
It just helps navigate and streamline and make sure things that are actually getting done on time.
It's true. But for zero cost to you to have professional representation to keep you out of any trouble or sticky situations, it's a no-brainer.
And the bottom line is you just don't know what you don't know. So when we talk about sewer inspections, when we talk about things being up to code or electrical, whatever maybe throughout the build process, if you don't know what to ask or what to look for, like you're kind of just going with just, I guess, benefit of doubt. And the problem is, it's just not the best practice with the most expensive purchase year to date of your life, right? Like it's just not the best way to handle it, right? So especially when it's costing you nothing, definitely yes.
Now, moving along, you're going to want to dive into the HOA documents. Now, HOAs are very, very popular in Colorado. We've gotten feedback from a lot of people coming from like East Coast and Midwest, and they're terrified of HOAs because they've been in a lot of really bad HOAs where they're measuring your grass, and if anything is just a little bit off, you're getting fined, or your bush looks a little unhealthy, you're getting fined for not taking it out.
Novelty mailbox. That's a violation. Wind chimes. Gross. 3 violation.
HOAs out here are not like that. I don't want to speak for every single one of them, but for the most part in these new build communities, there are major corporations that own these. It's not like you have this little board of 10 homeowners that live there where their sole mission now that they're retired is to go around and make your life difficult. No, it's these big corporations, and frankly, I love having them because it keeps the neighborhood looking good. It keeps people maintaining their properties.
You've got to get the color on your house. It's got to be approved as far as like what you're going to paint it, and it's got to stay within the theme of the neighborhood. Certain vehicles cannot sit for too long, or if they're inoperable, control. They're not going to be able to be out there yards. Not so much. And if your grass is a little long, I've never seen somebody get a warning for that. But if people let their grass go where there's weeds or it's dead or whatever it may be, you're going to get it. But again, that keeps the overall value and just pleasantry of the neighborhood up, which keeps the value of the neighborhood up, which ultimately is what we're all looking for because of your resale. And just when you're driving back in your neighborhood on your way home from work or your way home from dropping the kids off at school, you want things to look and feel appropriate. And that's where HOAs do a great job.
It's true. Now, potentially there are some specific things that maybe you have a big RV that you want to park at your house. Well, you're not going to be able to do that in an HOA community. So these are going to be some important things for you to dive into before making that purchase decision, and we can help you navigate any of these questions as well.
Correct.
All right, now moving forward, the construction timeline. This is going to be absolutely critical for you guys to understand. We've got a few different options here. We've got spec homes. Yep, which spec homes, basically they're building right now. They're not waiting for a buyer to come and purchase the home and then build.
Right. And those are pretty common for big builders. They tend to have like a handful of spec homes that they're building in the meantime while they're doing custom builds for everybody else because they know influx and just people wanting that certain area. Like everything is down to the data. They know how many people are moving there. They know the demand. And based off of the numbers, they know, hey, you know what? Let's start building 3, 5, or 6 spec homes. Spec homes are already pre-designed though. So the floor plan is done. The countertops, the cabinetry, the paint, it's all going to be picked. It's a pretty safe pick because everything they're picking is based off of the most popular picks that everybody else tend to have. So it's like your middle of the road, but you'll get some nice grays or browns or blacks. Looks really good. It might have a modern feel too, but it's typically right in the meat of what everybody else already picks. The benefit to this is if you did not plan on having like a new build home built, but now you're curious about a new build, but you've only got maybe 60 or 90 days before you've got to close on a home or be moved into a home. Well, these spec homes are pretty close to being done by the time that they're available. So these can be very easy turnkey move-ins for you.
Yeah, they can be either ready right now or like Will said, in a couple weeks or 90 days max. So that's a really good option for a lot of people. The other benefit to that is you know your out the door price. On a brand new dirt start build, you're looking at about a 12 to 14 month build for that. And you don't know what your out the door price is going to be because you still got to go to the design center. You've got to choose your lot, and there's usually a lot premium on there. So there's a lot more predictability around the spec home. So if you are looking for something more quick move-in with more predictability, that's a great option.
100%.
If you want to do something a little more customized or personalized rather, the dirt start build might be a great option if you've got a lot longer timeline.
And we've done so many new builds with pretty much every company that there is that are available, right? So if you guys are going to do a dirt start, you can still predict on average what you might spend or what most people spend in design center when they get to that phase. So we can at least be in a ballpark pretty darn close as far as what you're going to spend, as long as you don't change your mind and when you get to design center, you splurge. That would be something that you would then accommodate. But for the most part, you can somewhat get a good ballpark as far as on average, what do people spend? But there is just a little bit more unpredictability. As far as, delays on builds, depending on weather or supply, sometimes you get some delays on new builds. Right now, they're going pretty well. Post-COVID, we're significantly out of that. So supplies back up, transit overseas or wherever things are coming from tend to be back up now. So things have been pretty stable compared to about a year and a half ago where they couldn't even find wood. It's like $100 for a 2x4. Like it was just, build cost was crazy. They couldn't get it in from transport and things like that, but things are all ironed out now, so things are pretty smooth. So if you're watching this video right now, currently when this video has been made in the last 12 months, then you're probably going to be in good shape. But either way, there could be a couple delays just depending on, because hey, look, you're starting from dirt. There's going to be some unexpected. They might have to wait a little bit longer to be up to code or get a permit from the city for something, like whatever it may be. Expect for some of that. Spec homes, they're pretty much right there. So those are just going to be what you see is what you get, and on time.
Now, speaking of design center, this is something that a lot of you guys are always asking questions about, and rightfully so, because it is a big part of the process. But essentially, if you are doing a dirt start build, the home is they're going to start the build, and you're going to have a phase where you can choose any structural upgrades initially, meaning if you want the extended covered porch, if you want an extended kitchen island or something.
Correct. The only things that are pretty much decided are if that lot's going to allow a walkout basement or not. A lot of you that, depending on where you're moving from around the country, you've never had a basement before. Colorado is absolutely huge on walkout basements. I'm sure right now Eli's showing you some great B-roll of what a walkout basement looks like. Some lots, depending on how the infrastructure has to be for water drainage and flow of the neighborhood, some lots allow for walkout basements. Obviously, you have to dig a lot deeper. It's got to flow even further down. So some lots, they're not permitted to be walkout basements, but they can have a basement. So when you guys are looking at a dirt start, if a walkout basement is something that you're going to want to consider, that's got to be decided when you're deciding on which lot that you want. You can't just pick a lot, and then when you decide to go, for the foundation, or hey, they're going to start pouring, oh, hey, we want walkout. Like, that's the one thing that has to be specific to a lot. So something like that, and obviously when you guys get to that point, we'll be navigating that for you. But something like that's going to be predicated on the lots. Everything else, though, that Eli's talking about is going to be flexible for you.
Correct. Yeah, great point there. So some of these other structural upgrades might be if you want extra high ceilings in the basement, or extra tall door frames, or something like that. That happens pretty quickly after going under contract, because that's all stuff that they need to start mapping out immediately. Then usually within the next 60 days, you're going to have a trip where you go down to the design center. If you're out of state, we can also do this virtually for you guys, but you're going to go to the design center, and that's where you're going to choose every little finished part of your house, from the flooring and carpet pad, and the hinges on your doors, and the water fixtures, the light pendants, the backsplash, all the things.
Plan on 2 hours?
4. We had the last people with Toll Brothers, we had a 4-hour session, and then the next day a 3-hour session.
Eli just can't help himself. He just gets carried away in those places.
I'm just the mediator.
Between the off-whites and the taupe, now, he just it's a real hoot for him.
Here is one of the benefits to having us go along with you, is a lot of times when we're there, we're talking to the builder and we're asking price, right? And there was a specific situation where to finish a basement, which some builders do, a lot of builders don't, but it was an amazing deal. They were doing a finished basement for like 30 grand, which if you were to do that yourself, it'd be 70 to 100.
Right.
Now, the next thing that came up was like the little bench in your mudroom, that you sit on and hang your jacket and backpack on.
19 grand.
It was $7,500 to build a thing.
You could do it for 1,200.
100%. You could have a nice like local construction guy come by and do it under $1,500.
So right, and this is just where our experience comes in as far as like new builds and price points. And we've obviously got general contractors and folks that build that we've got relationships with that have done a ton of work for a ton of our clients. Even my own personal basement that they've done for us. So when we're navigating that design center, it's like bang for buck. What can we get done to the builder that just would be required by a builder, or it's just best and most affordable, best cost to go through with them? And then what are some things that maybe will add up that you don't quite need right away that we could have somebody independent come do and it be a fraction of the cost? So navigating some of that is going to be a huge piece once we see everything they have to offer through Design Center.
Now, our final point here, guys, is that you want to look at what stage is the entire community in, all right? If it's a brand new community, there's a very good chance that once your home closes, there's still a lot of construction happening around you for a long period of time. And on top of that, the community center and a lot of the amenities might not even be usable for legitimately a couple of years.
Correct. Now, what's the benefit to that, right? Why would you deal with construction noise? Why would you deal with not having the pool yet or the little coffee center yet? It's probably got something to do with equity. Right? Like when you're getting into those new build communities, that early price points tend to be very, very, very appreciative as far as like for
room
you.
To grow.
As the demand builds for that area and more eyes get on that area, more people start coming to that area, and it's more developed and it's almost finished, people tend to start paying a little bit more top dollar for that, which means that's okay. They're going to deal with less noise. They're going to have everything ready once they move in, but it's going to take them a little bit longer to acquire some of that equity. Now, if you move in later on, you're not going to have as much equity as quick, right? Because prices are going to have already increased. They've got a lot more marketing in the area. Everything's already developed. The pools are done. The clubhouse is done. The coffee house is done. So it's more appealing, right? So the prices have gone up significantly. But if you're one of the first couple of houses, if you don't mind, a year or two of some construction and maybe not having the pool, but how rapid those price points are going to go up from the first 2 houses, first 100 houses to when they're done at house number 5,000. It's very rapid. Once they're all done, it's still going to continue to grow, but just not as rapid. It's just going to be pretty much the same as like pre-existing homes and wherever the market's at once that development's done. But right here, when they're still building it, you've got a huge influx you can take advantage of if you get in early.
Now, as one last final bonus before we wrap this up, guys, one stone that I always encourage you guys to turn is that if you are interested in a new build home, there's often a ton of opportunities with someone who has built a home, they've done all the customizations, they've done the design center, they've done all the post-market upgrades to like just make it really just a nice home, like the custom walls, custom light fixtures, stuff like that. But then they got to move for whatever reason. It's very common that you might find a home that's just 1 or 2 years old, it's had one owner, and it's on the market. And a lot of times they're not able to get all their landscaping money back out of it, and
Correct.
you can come in and you can clean up.
That's how I bought my house, guys. It's a Toll Brothers. It's phenomenal. It's one of the rare homes that has an entire wall that not only goes in, like slides open.
Yeah, the big
all of
slider.
the panes of glass go into the wall. There's like typically they
awesome.
just all stack at the end. You can still see all the glass panes.
Yeah.
These go all the way inside the wall. They had to move back to Florida to get to some warmer weather. They were out here for some grandkids for a little while. It's too cold. They decided to go back to Florida. But we also have a ton of military out here. We also have a ton of folks that work for the government that are out here. So like it or not, they move every 2 to 3 years, and sometimes it's sooner than they expected because there's a promotional opportunity, and then they've got to sell that home. So there are some hidden gems that are a year and 2 years old where you can really get in for a good price bang for buck because they just got to offload it, in order to fit their obligations, and you have something great. So either way, just make sure you're doing that. And then always our last thing. He always thinks he has the last word. I get the last word, and that's that we're licensed realtors here in the state of Colorado. And yes, just as much as we love making these videos, we would love more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number that's popping back up below, we are the guys who answer the phone calls, text messages, and those emails. So if we can help you, we would love to. But hopefully this video was a huge help for you guys when it comes to dissecting the process for new build communities. And if you have questions about this and or anything else, we are here for you guys. We'd love to help you. But with that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys very soon.
See you guys.